The following may contain language that is not suitable for all audiences. It's time. Wow, that really sucked. For the Low Fact Podcast.
What's up?
All right, well, that's enough intro for the day. So, do you remember what you wanted to... Wasn't there something that we were kind of going to touch back on last time? Do you remember what that was?
No.
Neither do
I just edited too.
Neither do I. So let's just forge ahead, eh?
Okay.
Because I really don't have any topics per se, but
You don't? You're supposed to have the topics. It's your job.
I'm not very good at it. But there has been a thing that's been on my mind a lot lately. So much so that
when you say a lot, what do you mean?
I mean a lot.
Okay.
Like almost as much as sex.
Okay.
Which isn't saying much because I don't think about sex that much anymore anyway.
So sad.
Yeah, sadly I think about tasty food more. And since I moved...
Yeah, you're obsessed with food.
Okay, but since I moved out here, food's just not have the same quality. It's not as tasty as I remember food being in other places where I lived.
Maybe it's just because you were younger, though.
You make it sound like I'm ancient.
Well, you've been out here a while, dude.
I have been out here...
But you were a younger man when you moved out here.
Yeah, well, now I'm a middle-aged man, so...
What do you think's better, young or middle-aged?
In terms of what?
Just contentment, life in general.
Oh, young, definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because you don't think about shit when you're young?
And plus there's always like, it can always get better type deal. As much as I've mellowed in my middle age, which isn't all that much. Yeah. Knowing and seeing, having seen what I've seen and knowing what I know now, I'm just like, it was much better when I was...
Well, I've got the usual... allergic reaction to the podcast going on today, so...
Do you think it's a weird form of stage fright?
Could be. It's kind of funny because it's just you and me.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So what I was going to say that's been kind of... I've been thinking about a lot is inconsistencies and a lot of the various facets. Inconsistency in general. But various facets of inconsistency, like, for example... I don't know what evolutionary advantage there is. Oh, shoot, I forgot how to phrase it.
Well, we can wait a minute.
But you know what I'm talking about. There's this evolutionary... I don't know why, but pretty much everyone thinks that they are better than everyone else.
Okay, yeah.
Or, whatever they think. That is probably not true.
But you think it's an evolutionary thing?
Well, I don't know.
It's instinctual.
I don't know if it's a bug or, like, in spite of this inconsistent thinking that we have, we've managed to keep going.
Yeah.
Or if it's because of it.
Huh. Because
we all can see the faults in others pretty glaringly. There's even a Bible verse, right? Don't worry about the splinter in your brother's eye when you can't see the plank in your own.
Right.
So it's been around since at least then.
Well, yeah, and probably there's a reason it's in the Bible is because it's been around for a long time before that too.
Right. So I don't know what it is. Why do we do it, and is it helpful? Because I would like to think that as a species, because I was schooled in the school of economics, where, boneheaded assholes make stupid assumptions like, let's assume everybody will do things that are in their best interest, when we know that's not true.
Right. The even playing field, the objective.
Well, not even the even playing field, the objective, the reasonable. Oh no, that's a law school thing. The rational person.
Right.
That's the economic term.
The rational person.
Whereas in law is the reasonably. What is it? The reasonably objective person?
Yeah, but these people don't exist though. I don't think so. But maybe. Well, is it about confidence?
Well, even that though, because
I mean that gives you. If you think, well, is it about thinking that you're doing right? Because then you continue on, right?
But I've seen that a lot of the stuff we continue doing as a group, not very good. I mean, there's so many things that we can even touch on in the whole inconsistency thing. You know, take my abhorrence to communist philosophy, to large bureaucratic organizations, but without large bureaucratic organizations, we would not have taken over the planet as a species.
Right.
But even just thinking about, and this is a rehash, even in a communist system, which on an individual basis, it sounds really good. Everybody's going to have enough to live a decent life. But what ends up happening is a very small cadre have more than they know what to do with, and everybody else lives in shit. And that's supposed to be better than a capitalistic system where a small cadre has more than they know what to do with.
Well, but in the capitalist system, the rest have more.
Well, yeah, we live in shit. Everybody else lives in shit, but there's a chance that your shit's a little bit nicer.
People have nice shit here, dude.
Well, here,
like
yes.
In the United States?
Here, yes. Which is...
I mean, even the poor in the United States, the quote poor.
No argument from me on that.
They have houses.
And I think that is a testament to non-rampant capitalism. But there's always people that want more, that want other people's stuff, or hate other people, dislike other people for what they've got.
Well, that's kind of part of us too, though.
Again, and is that, what evolutionary advantage is there to that?
Well, I guess if you have more, then you have a better chance of survival, right?
Well, not just more, but what
like if you have more food, for example, you have more food stores.
Only if you can preserve it.
Right. If you have a larger group, then you have a better chance of survival.
Only if that group marches in the same direction.
But if everybody's on the same page about getting more, is that enough?
Well, it depends on how you're going to get that more. If everybody's going to get more by, working hard, pulling together, being cooperative, possibly. But it doesn't seem to me that that's ever done. Like once you get past a certain number, well, let's say you're in a place with very limited resources. Like think about the various bands of Apache the various bands of Indians in the Southwest, I guess. So like I'm thinking New Mexico, Arizona, West Texas.
Okay.
They just preyed upon each other.
So they're always fighting each other?
A lot of the time.
Doesn't really get focused on very much.
Well, it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
And that's another thing.
Well, the Maoris always, they were very warring. They were always fighting each other over shit.
Right, so...
And taking slaves and
I suppose
all that stuff.
It's easier to take somebody else's stuff than try to make your own.
Yes.
So, I don't know if I've answered my own question with that, but that's just a statement. It is easier to take somebody else's stuff. It seems easier to take somebody else's stuff than to have your own. But that only works if there's like one band of people taking other people's stuff. Everybody else is weak and peaceful and just trying to get more stuff on their own.
I keep coming back to your first question, though, which is like, is there an evolutionary advantage to thinking that you're
the bee's knees?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't either. That's why it's the question. It doesn't have to be answered. It just kind of seems weird, right? Because throughout my life, my observance is people tell you, work hard, be a contributing member of society, do-da, 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 do-da. But the people that are at the very tippy top, they work hard at taking other people's stuff, at being in a certain position and exploiting that position. Like growing up, what were you always told?
Work hard.
Were you ever told debt's no good?
No. But it was like, work hard, do a good job, be a good citizen, look after your family, look after your friends. In my case, be a good Catholic.
Because, growing up, debt was a 4-letter word.
In your household?
Literally and physically and figuratively.
Nah, see, like, not in my house.
But, however, you can't make any kinds of money without going into debt.
And then that begets more debt?
It can, but it's a gamble, right? You can't amass any kind of riches in the system that was set up when I was growing up by not going into debt to get more stuff, to pay off your debt to get more stuff.
But then you just end up with more debt.
Not necessarily. If you're kind of lucky.
Mm-hmm.
For example, take real estate.
Okay.
Take anything, right? If you want to be a real estate mogul, or hell, a movie mogul, any kind of mogul, what do? You borrow money to get the asset and hope that the asset will pay off.
Yeah, those guys they're not spending their own money.
Well, it's not even
at the beginning.
It's not even not spending their own money. You don't have the money. Like
right.
if you want to be okay, perfect example, getting a house. You can work until the cows come home and not eat, and maybe after 30, 40, 50 years, you'll be able to buy a house.
Right. And then you'll be too old.
Right. Or you could get a loan to get a house. You can pay off that house with whatever job or whatever you have, and don't get me started on unemployment, because that's a bit of a yoke in and of itself. The large corporate entities want every one of us to be an employee. They don't want any of us to go into business for ourselves and make our own living.
Which is also an interesting topic.
But it's part of the inconsistency.
Because they kind of say,
you need to work.
You need to stand on your own 2 feet.
Right, you need to do all this stuff, and yet the ones with the most money, the most assets, they get handouts. They get help.
But see, I think in the movie mogul, right? The movie mogul, okay, so he or she, they might borrow some money and have a very successful movie, but that producer is never going to, even once the producer has their own money, chances are they're probably not going to put that money up unless they absolutely have to. They're going to borrow more money off other people.
Right, because
to make more movies.
The story we always hear are the story of people that just believe, like the Rocky producers for Rocky. They took a mortgage on their house.
Right.
And they got Rocky made.
Or George Lucas, like the studio with the studio. Well, Star Wars, as the story goes, they didn't have enough money in post-production to finish stuff, and so he made a deal and said, I'll put up my money to finish the movie, and then he took merchandising because they were like, oh, this movie's Star Wars isn't going to have merchandising. But the stories are very few and far between of the movie mogul putting up his own money, because the movie mogul's not going to do that.
I see it a little bit differently. I don't even think it's very few and far between. Those are the only stories that you hear.
There's 2 I can think of.
Like take internet dating, right? Or any type of dating situation. You number one, if you meet someone who lives on the other side of the country, you should probably not pack up and move. If you live on one coast and you're in love with someone who lives on the other coast, you should probably not pack up and move to be with that other person because inevitably that fails. But what are the stories that we always hear about? Everyone talks about the people that they did and they have a very successful and happy marriage.
I know a couple that met, but they met here. They met here in California on internet dating.
I'm not even talking. I'm mixing two things up. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the you meet somewhere, and then somehow
one person moves.
Right.
And I think probably the statistics of those relationships failing is probably pretty damn high.
Just like the statistics on cohabitating before you get married, breakups after marriage, there is a higher incidence of divorce after that.
Why is that?
I have my own personal philosophy or theory. But what is it that many people do ever since we were very young adults? First thing you do is you play house.
Right.
And then you get married.
Right.
And a lot of times you also then get divorced.
Why is it higher the other way?
I don't think it's any one thing. Because marriage as an institution, a lot of our institutions have kind of not panned out right. And mostly I think it's because we don't stick with the institutions.
Okay.
My personal thought on why people who live together before they get married end up getting divorced at a higher rate than people that don't do that is because for some reason they don't look at marriage as a sanctified type relationship.
Okay.
Because hey, when you live together while you're dating and you split stuff up and bills and you want to do a test drive before you go for the real thing. And yeah, okay. But being of a personality type where the test drive never works, right? That if I practice
right
as hard as I try in practice, I'm still not really kind of like I'm shit at practice.
Right.
If you were to sit there and say that the only test is going to be how well this person does in practice, then, and I've seen it happen in many things all throughout my life. I suck. I remember one of the last things that I had to do to become a full-fledged auditor was to pretend to do a real audit, and
I take it didn't go well.
No, I had to repeat like a week or two of training because they're just like,
you're not getting it.
Yeah, you suck. You're not taking this seriously. I'm like, it's fucking practice.
Yeah, but you got to treat it like it's the real deal.
Okay, but then the real deal came up, and then I ended up having to coordinate stuff. Pretty much 2 months into my quote unquote full-fledged auditorness
career,
and a lot of people were like, "Oh, this isn't going to go well." They told me this after the fact.
Because they'd seen you practice.
Yeah. And it was a pretty complex thing, right? It was coordinating 4 locations with 5 different teams from 3 different branch offices.
How did you end up getting the short straw on this shit?
Because the place that I was auditing was the main place.
Oh, okay.
It was the main store.
Okay.
But they had locations a few locations on the East Coast, a couple locations on the West Coast, Midwest, and in the Southeast where I was. And it wasn't even my territory. I was covering for somebody else.
It sounds like a disaster.
It could have been. And I was me had to go like notice something wrong. Or not wrong, just notice something that wasn't quite adding up.
Yep.
So I talked to the person that was getting the financing. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's just always been like that." I was like, "Okay." So I talked to one guy, And that guy didn't want to have anything to do with it, so I was like, I'm going to kick this up to the branch manager. Talk to them, they're like, oh, I don't want anything to do. Kick it up to the VP. The VP's like, oh, shit. And the VP's like, I was like, okay, this, so I was like, okay, is this, what do we got to do? He's like, I was like, is this what we have to do? I was like, yes. It's like, who do I need to call? I was like, well, give me a list of all the people. And so then I was calling various folks to coordinate the second audit to go back in like 2 weeks later.
Right.
But at that point, it had to be a little bit of a surprise, so all the stores had to be audited at the same time.
Right, so you had to coordinate all that shit.
Yeah. And when I was talking to these people, I was talking to a lot of people, and they were senior folks. There were folks that had been there for like 10 years. And I was talking to them, and they were like, you know, we've never heard of you. How long have you been in the company? I was like, I graduated from college 2 months ago. And so they were sitting there going, I thought you were a regional vice president.
Oh.
But that's not to like, enough of blowing sunshine off my own ass. But that's
fair enough.
But that's very much like the Tom Brady effect, right? When he was graduating from college.
Oh, now you're comparing yourself to Tom Brady?
No, I'm saying that's
No, I'm just kidding. Dude, I'm just busting your balls, man.
That's fine. I'm just saying that's something that's probably more something that other people can relate to in the fact that they know that story.
Right.
For people that like sports.
Right.
But I don't like sports, and even I know that story. But that's the thing, right? There are people that just kind of suck at practice, like me, but can turn it on when the real deal comes. I don't know how many people there are like that.
That's gonna suck for test taking and stuff too.
Well, no, because the test is a real deal.
Oh, the
right?
test is a real deal. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I'd fuck around during class when test time comes.
You're fucking maverick.
I'm on the ball. I've never done poorly on a test.
Really?
No. Yeah, there was that one.
See, for me, it was always the day. Like, I never knew whether or not it would be good or not.
Oh, I didn't care.
This is the man who goes to sleep during the bar exam.
Well, that's the thing, right? For me...
I remember you taking a nap between the sessions, the morning session and the afternoon session.
We had time.
Dude, I was too near. I couldn't sleep during a situation like that.
Dude, we would have had if we had gotten a hotel at the same place, we would have had such a good time. Because man, the night before I went to Sizzler, I was eating good, I was relaxed.
I might have done better, but as it was, I still passed. So I guess it doesn't.
That's all that counts, right?
Yep. Pass.
That's the funny thing about the California bar, especially back then. They don't tell you how you did unless you fail.
Right. I want to know, like, how, like, was it close or was I like way over?
Oh, there's.
But when you fail, they give it to you. They give you War and Peace.
They give it to you in excruciating detail. Yeah.
That's kind of messed up.
But so the inconsistency thing. I mean, we just pointed out a few,
right?
And I don't understand, because we're sold this one bag of goods in a general situation, but more and more as I get older, I find that bill of goods doesn't seem to quite add up.
Well, I remember a family member of mine who's very connected, and her father was very connected. And I remember when I was going through my divorce, her saying, no, don't burn your bridges, make sure you keep on working hard. And, like the don't burn your bridges thing was very good advice at the time, because she was very true. She was like, stick with it, right?
That's very true.
You've done all this work to get accredited for the bar, and she was like, you've got a job, so just stick with it. But the funny thing is that she's very connected. So, I'm not saying she's very talented, but at the same time, she didn't get a lot of the stuff she got by talent. She got it by virtue of her connections.
Right. But not through talent alone is what you're trying to say.
Right.
But people that get where they get, or when they get lots of stuff, regardless of how talented or untalented they are, they seem to want to tell this story to everyone that they got it through sheer talent.
Yeah, that was never part of like her. Whenever she would be giving the advice, it would never be like, well, you can take advantage of these connections that you have.
Which you should.
Right.
Which you should.
Right.
And that's the thing.
But maybe you don't even need to. Maybe it's not even something that's like on your radar. If by virtue of the fact that you just have the connections, that shit just kind of happens, right?
Or you're very fortunate. There are people that are very fortunate and think they got where they are by virtue of their own grit.
But then the problem about having that attitude is that if and when things do go south, I think it's harder for that person at that point. Because before that, they were like, well, this is all due to my own greatness or my own skills or whatever. But then when things go bad, I think it's pretty bit of pill to swallow at that point.
I think that situation pretty much describes going postal. You know, now it's kind of a bit of a funny meme in a sense.
Going postal.
Yeah, did you guys ever have that?
I know the expression going postal and I know where it comes from. Yes.
It comes from someone who was
a postal worker.
Highly achieving.
Well, what was it, a postal worker?
Yeah. Was a postal worker who...
He got fired, right?
Throughout his career, he worked hard. Things were going well. Then they didn't go well.
How did he get fired? Do you know?
I either think that he
fucked something up.
I don't know if it was that. I mean, it doesn't seem like you get fired for messing something up at the post office, but for whatever reason...
He got fired.
Yeah, he wasn't getting what he was supposed to get.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Right.
And that, in a very devastatingly human scale, is him not being able to deal with.
And he went in. How many people did he kill?
I don't think it matters.
It was a lot, right?
Well, I don't know is the first answer.
But that's where the expression going postal came from, is this one guy.
Yeah. You know, before it became a cultural, joke, it was... And even that movie, Falling Down...
It was, very similar.
Is that situation. But in that, it was like Stray Dog, in that it was two people that were kind of falling down, and one was able to take it better than the other.
By the way, speaking of stuff in the news, or just... Have you been following that whole thing with the submarine?
Only because
They didn't find it. They found debris now, right? Like, it's done.
Oh, yeah, they're dead.
Yeah.
They were probably dead since
But the weird thing is that people were already making jokes about it from the beginning. On Instagram.
Well, yeah.
Like there was and I'm like, I don't know. I just found that very odd.
Well, that goes back to what we were saying last time about every person.
I'm like, why would you make a joke about that?
Because you don't know that person.
Right. They're like, oh, they were using a controller for the $30. They had a $30 controller from an Xbox in it, and and just making the connections. Like, apparently, the wife of one of the guys is like her grandparents were on the Titanic, great great grandparents were on the Titanic, but people were just making light of it and making fun of it, and I'm just like, there's still people that died.
Well, sure, but it's easy to. That's easy.
So people were kind of obsessed with it, but at the same time having fun with it.
And for some people, that's the way they deal. But for you, generally, that's just.
I just thought it was weird.
Well, like I said, remember, every life, everybody that you meet is somebody's irreplaceable, priceless treasure.
Yeah.
That guy that cuts you off on the freeway, the stanky bum, whatever.
Stink.
At one point was somebody's, and maybe still is, somebody's irreplaceable treasure. And the only reason why you're sitting there hating on him is because they inconvenienced you somehow.
Yeah.
Or they did something you didn't like.
I always wonder with the homeless folks, where's their family? What happened to this point that this person has nobody around to help them?
They probably screwed them over way too many times.
Yeah.
You don't go from being in a comfortable situation to being out on the street. Yeah. Generally. But because as a species or as a culture, we tend to focus on that. I think there's a big focus on the homeless children, or the poor unsuspecting wife whose husband has a gambling problem and lost everything, and now she's in a van with her kids trying to find.
Right.
I'm not saying that's any less tragic, but that's not
That's not the majority.
And the majority is not as compelling of a story.
Well, the majority is just everybody on fucking fentanyl.
The majority is it's usually a guy who has some kind of problem, gambling, drugs, something.
Yeah.
And
then add mental illness into the mix.
Maybe.
Well, a bunch of them do, dude.
Sure. Because, I think you have to be a little mentally ill to be like, you know what, it's okay to live out in the street.
Right.
But generally it's somebody who has some kind of problem and they use up lifelines in that, they steal stuff from their family or to pay for whatever problem, or they keep on doing things and finally they have no support system and so they're out there.
Right.
That is more often the case than someone who just got struck by lightning and by lightning of bad circumstance.
Right.
That's not to say that the lightning of bad circumstance doesn't happen, but that's a much better story.
Yeah.
That's a much more compelling story.
Interestingly, on the homeless thing, people are starting to say stuff that we've been saying on the podcast for a while, which is like, why do the powers that be, like, who stands to profit from essentially keeping things as the status quo?
Somebody does. That's always the case.
And people are just sitting there saying everybody's talking about how this is a problem, but nobody's doing anything.
They're doing plenty. They're getting paid. Cynical? Yes. Doesn't make it untrue.
Because that's really the only explanation when you think about it.
Think horses, not zebras?
Because
I don't know if that's truly a medical term.
What?
Well, generally the most simple answer is generally the right answer. So, like, when you see hoof prints, especially out here living in America,
it's probably horses.
Think horses, not zebras.
Right.
And I don't know. I saw it on a medical show, but I don't know if it's a medical thing.
It doesn't sound like a medical term, dude.
It might not be, but I've always been in the recipient of K.I.S.S, the K.I.S.S theory, the K.I.S.S theorem.
What is it? Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep. Or the group I hung out with is keep it simple, shithead.
So, is that just like a life philosophy, or explaining things?
A little bit of both. For my group, it was don't overcomplicate your plan.
Oh, I wouldn't have done well in this group. I like to make any simple plan very complicated.
Well, that and the fact that you can't grow a really good beard.
I just look like my beard is the saddest thing in the world. Part of the reason why I don't want to do a video podcast, actually.
Well, we might.
I don't really want to be on camera.
Actually, it looks like time is coming close to an end, so I can't really grow a decent beard either.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, but I didn't want to make you feel bad. But at a point, I had a really cool looking Fu Manchu thing going.
No.
And being an Asian guy, that was just too close to home, so I wouldn't do it. But they still called me Fu Manchu a lot.
Oh, that's funny.
So anyway, thanks for hanging out with us for as long as you have. Like, subscribe, tell all your friends. I don't know, hit us over the
Yeah,
oh.
You can hit us. You can find us on our Instagram page, Low Fat Podcast. You can find us SoundCloud, wherever you listen, or you can email us, lowfatpodcast@gmail.com. But please send us an email. That would be awesome.
And if you don't, just keep listening and telling everybody else to bring our stuff. It really gives me a lot of satisfaction to check and see how many views we've had.
And we as Dave always says, we would love to have the opportunity to sell out.
Yeah.